Good evening and welcome to the first episode of Super Deluxe Gamecast for 2021. 2020 is but a memory now, but a bitter, disgusting, rotting memory. And we're moving into what is hopefully going to be a much better year. We're no, not so far. We'll 2021 is the new 2020. But coming off we've been on break for the holidays for a few weeks, and we were just talking in the Discord today about how much we missed the show and how much we missed each other, and it's nice to sit down and feel regular again on a Thursday night. We got a lot of good content coming for you this year. We're gonna kick back into getting our pre-recorded stuff out. You're gonna have more after hours content. It's gonna be a great time. We're really excited to see what 2021 holds for SDGC. We're gonna keep going strong as always. I want to give a quick shout out to our former castmates Matt and Zach. They started a new podcast called Matchpoint, and it's really fucking good. It's really fucking good. Their first few episodes focus on the story behind the Hitman franchise. And they've got really good promo artwork for it too. And it's super cool. So go check them out on SoundCloud and Spotify and all major podcast services. It's called
They
Matchpoint.
just have really good chemistry together.
They do. They really do.
They're wonderful people. I love
they
those.
really do. They really are. And it's so nice to see them striking out and doing their own thing. And of course, both of them are so incredibly talented. I expect great things from them in the future. But speaking of great things, look at this. We're all back together. And look, Reb is back. This is cool.
Reb is back.
Hi! Me! This is nice. This feels normal. This feels like a nice, cozy Thursday night.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it is! And this is really cool, too, because I think I've been on a show with Brittany before. I don't remember what No? Maybe I've just been on a voice call with you. But, okay, so I've never been on a show with either Brittany or CJ before, and I love this. This is good.
I'm excited.
CJ was bringing the heat before we went live too. Like no. CJ was.
Enjoy the cozy now before we're all screaming at each other in a half hour.
Well, why would we be? Yeah. This is a nice podcast.
Yes.
Nice.
You have a very different story in this podcast.
Can we?
Nice.
Yeah, don't worry. She'll remember in about 5 minutes. But
the second Finn starts insulting my Game of the Year choice, yes,
absolutely. Or
I'm going to be on his best behavior tonight.
I sure will.
Not. No. Oh my God!
Wow, Finn.
Buddy.
Wow, Finn. Oh my God.
I feel like I just caught it. Like
I recoiled.
Hold on.
I'm so glad that we upgraded. I'm so glad that we upgraded Finn's microphone.
This is the most I have talked. This is the most I have talked in a consecutive fashion in a month, and
he's gonna be too worn out to insult your game, Reb.
It's wild. This is I don't go anywhere. We're in a lockdown. I've been in we've all been in this lockdown since March, and if you don't have a job that has you going out, which I don't, I'm not going anywhere. I haven't heard another human being cough in like 10 months, but because I'm so conditioned to be afraid of that now, that was terrifying, Finn.
I mean, it sucks because you have to understand, with the pneumonia, I've been told that this cough is going to persist for like another 3 to 6 months.
Oh shit!
And that my lungs are just desecrated. So it's fun. It's cool. It's cool. Oh, fun fact! I just want to tell everyone. Because now I can look back on it and laugh, but I was 1% oxygen away from being put on a respirator and sent to the ER.
That's not funny. Like,
I
will never be funny, no matter how much time.
I can look back on it now and be like, "Whoo, dodged that bullet!" But at the time, I was like, "Oh no!" And
everybody, do everything you can to try not to get this.
Yeah.
Sometimes this is no shade to you because I know you're doing everything you can, but. God.
Yeah, now is not the time to throw a coup. Stay home.
Yeah, don't do that.
And now is also not the time to flood the streets.
Yeah.
Yes. Don't go to those college sports games.
I also want to point out that I called Finn today to tell him something, and as soon as he picked up the phone, it was hello, and I was like, Jesus Christ! I was like, and I was driving. I almost swerved off the road. I was like, Finn, are you dying? Like, holy shit! And he was like, I'll be at the podcast tonight. And I'm like, are you
I'll
sure?
be at the podcast.
Like,
That's what you sound like, John. That's not what Finn sounds like. That's what John sounds like. I'll be at the podcast.
Look, all I know is Dual Daddies is going to be awesome.
I'm so excited. That artwork is so good.
And this is the longest I've ever had my beard grow out. I am so disheveled right now.
You're
great.
Very
you're
sagely.
about a quarter. You're about a quarter of a way from me at my longest beard point in Afghanistan. Like you're getting there. Like you've got another, like, I don't know, 6 inches, 7 inches to go. But yeah, no, dude, it's looking good. It's looking real good. I also want to point out real quick before we get started that I just recorded an episode of the Cozywood Kitchenette with Reb on Sunday.
Yeah.
Reb, when does that drop?
Let me on my calendar remember what dates are. So there is an episode dropping tomorrow, but it's not yours. Actually, the episode tomorrow that's dropping is the Flapjackerack from Bug Snacks with Seth, one of the developers of Bug Snacks. And then in 2 weeks, on the 29th, I will have John on, and we will attempt to redeem ourselves. Well, I will attempt to redeem myself. John might help by making a pizza from Overcooked 2.
So and I you're right. Like, I just want to say that recording with Reb was one of the best podcasting experiences I've had in a long time.
Don't butter me up before the game of the year discussion.
No, I'm serious. No. It is. I've been listening since you started it. I know this podcast, it's still new, but it is so good. And your opening script especially is just like, it feels like a really warm, wholesome, like NPR podcast about games I could sit down and listen to with something warm to drink. Like, it's just really, I really love it. It's so cool. Thank you so much for having me on.
No, thank you. You're wonderful as well. You were a fantastic guest. John and I had a really good conversation, and I'm excited for people to be able to hear it.
Yeah, me too.
Aww.
Me too.
That
But
was
there
really
are
sweet.
other things to talk about tonight, and that is
May I make some
Final
announcements?
Fantasy VI, the ins and outs of Final
No,
Fantasy
stop.
VI.
Yes, contrary to popular
please, oh my
belief,
God.
you can't actually rescue General Leo.
You can't. You
it's
can
right
with a
up-
Game Genie. You can with a Game Genie.
Well, not legally, and it's a lot like when people try to revive Aerith. You can't. You're going to see
I
a
have
lot
announcements
of
I
things
have
on the
to
internet
make
saying
before
you
we do our
can.
very long show.
All right. I don't want. I
would like us to go
there.
one
The
fucking
best-
episode without Final Fantasy VI
Sabin is the best
barging through
there.
the door like an
You
unwanted
never have to worry
guest.
about that with me.
You mean bum rushing through the door and then suplexing
Finn.
the
All
podcast?
right. Let's let Derek kick it off. Derek, why don't you take us away?
So a couple of announcements. Beginning in this year, should be starting with this episode, we are now partnering with the fine folks at But Why Though. So we are now part of the But Why Though extended family. You're going to see a lot of crossover between a lot of us. A lot of their writers and talent are going to start showing up on our after hours and review discussions, and we're going to be pushing out some content for them, and our podcast is going to be featured on their site. We're going to partner with them on some like charity events and such throughout the year. It's going to be a great time. Please check out But Why Though. If you haven't had a chance to, I can write that out in the chat. It's But Why Though, but with though only being THO. And then part of that is But Why Though hosts regular giveaways. One of those kind of like, follow the various platforms and sign up for XX giveaway. Well, we're going to be keeping track of that in our chat with this lovely new Nightbot command I just set up 20 minutes ago. So if you !giveaway, I will be keeping that up to date with whatever But Why Though's current promotional giveaway is. But yeah, it's super exciting to be working with them. We love Kate. Kate is fantastic. All of them are fantastic. It's
The whole community. Yeah.
yes,
They're really
good.
great.
They're good.
Yeah.
Finn, buddy.
So you might be asking, but why though? And the answer is because they're awesome.
I love you, Finn. I mean that with
He's
no.
better. He's better, guys.
Yep, he's back.
He's-
We got him.
He's
I mean, we knew he was-
practicing. He's been making dad jokes his whole life, but here very soon they're going to be actual dad jokes.
I love how everybody's like, "Oh, he's better," and immediately Finn's like,
Yeah. There was this collective moment on Twitter like a couple weeks ago where he hadn't tweeted much for like a week, and then he just threw like 2 puns out there, and everyone is just like, "Oh, yeah, you're fine.
He's
Finn's
fine.
fine.
You're gonna be okay."
Finn's fine.
That's good time.
All right.
That's what I've got. I needed to get the But Why Though announcements out there since this episode should be the first one that gets featured on the site. So
Jeff is looking very good with his new ring light too. Like I've noticed that. Like
I was
Jeff,
very,
just shakes
making
his
way
head.
too much of this.
Jeff, you're
Jeff
looking
looks
very
good all the
vibrant.
time.
Jeff,
I think
you are
he's
a
just
handsome
very
man.
I
handsome
agree.
person. Yeah,
Everybody on this
He's-
podcast looks swell.
this is a very good-looking
We're looking-
podcast.
We are a really good looking podcast.
Really?
I'm not gonna pull any punches about that.
No, that's
All right. So yeah, game of the year stuff. So we obviously we're not talking about game of the year for 2021. If Final Fantasy 16 comes out, we already know that's.
I haven't finished
True.
a video game in
Um,
2021 yet.
Oh.
I've
Wait.
already finished 2. Is that bad?
No, I have. That's a lie. No, I didn't.
But we are.
Keep us
I'm right there
posted,
with you.
Red.
I finished a
I
TV
know
show.
I've-
I finished a TV show.
So what we're going to do today? Are we? So we're just doing game of the year. We're not doing runner-ups.
no
right? Like,
runner-ups.
we're not gonna do-
I think
correct,
we've done
okay.
runner-ups in the past, and I think it works better for us to just focus on our game of the year. We have a little bit more time for us as a group to talk about each game.
Okay.
So we have 6 games that we've collectively decided upon as game of the year. 2 of those got multiple people on them. So I guess we'll start with the 4 that got 1 vote and then move on to the 2 that got 2 votes. John, who do we want to kick it off?
You know what? It's been a while since Reb has been on, and we all missed her a great deal. And so,
No.
and it just yeah, Reb, you go first.
Okay, well, I mean, everyone knows
But I wanna hear
what my
you
game
talk
of the
about
year
it.
is.
We
You
wanna hear you
know,
talk about
of
it.
course, it's Animal Crossing, and I have written about this. If you'd like to hear read my written words on the game of the year, I did an article at GamesIndustry.biz. You could read, okay. So I love Animal Crossing. I have loved Animal Crossing, for forever. I played so much Wild World. I played so much New Leaf, and from about the time when New Leaf kind of started to flag, I have been screaming on the internet about trying to get, at the time, a Wii U Animal Crossing, because that was the console we had, and later on a Switch Animal Crossing, and I just have not shut up about it since. And it's very rare, I think, for people to very much want a sequel to something, and then for that sequel to be kind of everything that they want and more. And I can't speak for other people, but New Horizons was very much everything I wanted from an Animal Crossing sequel and more. Like it did not, aside from maybe like a little bit better online play, which I was never going to get from Nintendo to begin with, there really wasn't anything about everything about New Horizons was just Animal Crossing but better and more, which was exactly what I wanted. Like, it doesn't need to be anything different. It doesn't need to be anything innovative. It just needs to be this little happy, pretty playground that I can hang out in with all my animal friends. And it came out, right when the pandemic hit and right when lockdowns hit. And so there was a lot of discourse about how, it's the game everybody needs in 2020. And for a while it was, and I think a lot of people fell off of it, but I am an Animal Crossing person. And I know myself, I know a lot of other people too, who just never fell off of it. I would sometimes leave for like a week or 2, but I would always come back and play like a little bit every day. And honestly, it has been my constant throughout the entirety of 2020. Like, I have played all of the seasonal events. I have, popped in at least every couple of days just to say hi to my neighbors. And I have done everything. I have blue roses, people. I think my museum's almost done. I still have some sea creatures left to get, because those came out a little bit later, like the deep dive. But I have, because I want time travel, but like I have basically everything done in my town. Like, I have perfect little villagers. I have everything laid out the way I want it. Like, I'm done, but I still show up every day because it is just so pleasant to go to this little space and interact with these creatures and talk to them and have just these pleasant little virtual people who are happy to see me and want to tell me about their lives and want to give me gifts and want to ask me for favors, and I can do things for them. And I remember when the update came out a few months ago, and it was this big deal that you could sit on the ground next to them, and we all lost our collective minds because it was just so pleasant to see them sitting there eating a donut, and you could just sit next to them, and that was it. And it was just beautiful and pleasant. Animal Crossing is a kindness simulator. to me. It is this game where I can just exist in this little community that I can nurture and take care of and love, and have characters that nurture and take care of and love the player character. And honestly, like that's what I needed. That's what I need all the time. That's what I needed in 2020. But I would have been this way, I think, no matter what year it came out. I don't know how long I will keep playing New Horizons. I think eventually I will stop because, you know, eventually you do. But, you know, I'm still playing it and I'm still loving it, and it consistently makes me happy every single time I pop into it. There's always like some new delight or new like little small thing to run into, and it is the game that made me the happiest this year, and so it's, you know, an easy choice.
Well, and there's another free update coming out in a few months, right?
Yes, they keep rolling them out.
Do we have any idea? Do we have any idea what this entails, or?
I don't know. I would assume that the one in February will involve Carnival. I think they have maybe teased that because there's a character for Carnival, a big old peacock, if I remember from New Leaf. I don't really know what that'll entail. They've data mined Brewster's Cafe in the game, but we thought that would come out in the fall update, but it hasn't shown up yet. And I know everyone's very excited to see Brewster, so I'm interested to see when that'll show up.
Finn, you got your hand up. Speak up.
I just want to say that I am very happy. This game has brought so much joy to so many people.
Thank you.
That's all I got.
Yeah.
Aw, thanks, Finn.
That's so, you know, I'm in an interesting position because I've played like 0 minutes total of the entire Animal Crossing franchise. I did not play Animal Crossing New Horizons, but I think that if you were to ask me to pick an objective game of the year, right? Not necessarily the game that I enjoyed the most, but I think the game that was most important to 2020, I think I would be putting that on Animal Crossing. I mean, when I look back on 2020, 10 years from now, and I think of a single game that defined the year, it's going to be Animal Crossing. And part of that is just the time that it came along. It came along right at the beginning of a really rough lockdown period that has never truly let up. This pandemic has been brutal to us, and we've lost a lot of our ability to socialize in person with other people, at least assuming you're being responsible. But Animal Crossing has brought a lot of people together, and it's brought people a lot of very small and simple and wholesome joy in a year that desperately needs it. And it has never stopped being big, popular, relevant, front of the headlines. I know that Martha has put something like 500 hours into the game this year.
That's about where I'm at, yeah.
And any game that can do that to people is something special.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right too. Like I know everybody has written a damn article about this, but I cannot emphasize like how much Animal Crossing was a game for socializing this year. I went to I went to a graduation in Animal Crossing. I went to multiple birthday parties. I went to Mr. Dellaby pointed out in chat. I went to Rami Ismail's I believe it was a suhoor meal that I went to.
Yeah, I was there too.
You weren't at the same one as me, though, were you?
No.
Yeah, but like a bunch of people went to those, and that was really cool. It allowed me to sort of like very different from how it would normally be, but it allowed me to like get this like window into a holiday that I do not personally celebrate from a culture that is not mine, but it was really cool to be a part of that. It was so exciting and like really nice, and I got to meet people that way, and it was really fun. You know, I've talked to people and interacted with them, and it's been really cool. Like, yeah, I know there's video games like Fortnite lets you do emotes at people, but Animal Crossing, like, you know, has emotes and has like interactions that even though they're limited in some ways, you can sit. But a lot of them are like a little more human, I think, in some ways, just because of kind of the range that you're given, and the sort of ways that you're empowered to like interact with people. It's not it's limited in some ways. Like online is limited, and ultimately you're still doing it through a virtual avatar. But yeah, I don't know. It's just it's been really, really special.
Well, that's one of the things I loved about it, and I think that was when the Discord was the most active. Was when Animal Crossing first came out. Like that sub chat was popping because everybody was selling stuff and wanting to get recipes and, you know, turn up.
No, it's Sunday. What are the prices? What are the prices?
Right. Like it was such a like just a feeling of togetherness, you know, like you had to work together and it forced you to really hang out with people in a time where you couldn't physically. So I think it was really important to have that at that time.
Yeah.
Reb, to kind of like, sorry, John, I just wanted to like
CJ,
kind of
please.
You know, you mentioned that's the kind of simulator, Reb, and how you were able to attend all these events. Like, to that point, I'm not into sim games, right? I only put in like 6 hours into Animal Crossing New Horizons, but I mostly did it because so my girlfriend and Waypoint Set podcast co-host, Christine, she got the game. She was excited for it. She was all in. I got my Switch Lite about a month after it came out, and she had me download it from her account. She's like, let's play it. Let me show you around and do all this stuff. You know, like that was at the beginning of the pandemic. We couldn't see each other for like 3 or 4 months. We had dates. If you go on my Twitter, back in like April, you know, move past all the Simpsons screenshots. If you go down like to like March or April, you'll see like my little Animal Crossing avatar, her little Animal Crossing avatar, like having lunch in her her village that is way better than anything I will ever build. All this time she showed me through her museum. She has like all this artwork in her house. I had a tent with the cot and a Nintendo Switch, and that's about all I did. Like, that's it. But the fact that, you know, I was able to, you know, do something as close to, you know, like a date at a time where no one could, like, that really meant a lot to me. I'm not going to play this game ever again, but speaking to that, like it really, you know, brought something like that you know, not everyone could get in this sort of like, what is it, trying time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Imran and I did exactly the same thing. Like, we've had multiple dates in Animal Crossing, and I think also along those lines, something that it's let me do is I think one of the frustrations of being in a long distance relationship is that, like, it's harder to sort of do kind of like little surprises for your partner. Like, I can't just like bring over cookies or something and surprise him with that. Like, I just physically can't do that. There's a few things I could do, but like some things are limited. And I have been able to a few times, so like, even though he's not really playing actively anymore, I can send him a message and be like, hey, there's a meteor shower on my island. Do you want to come look at it with me for like, you know, 10 minutes or whatever? And he'll come over and we'll just like sit and watch the stars and talk for a little bit. Or I had him come over for the Northern Lights recently. And that was really, really cool, because those are like these like really rare, like special events that you could just come over and see. I was actually really bummed out. I found out after it had happened, and I don't time travel. But I found out that apparently the sunrise and sunset on January 1st in Animal Crossing is exceptionally bright. So normally you can't see the sun. Like, it's obviously lit, but like the actual sun itself is like always just off screen. But on January 1st, you can actually see the sunrise and the sunset because, and I'm probably like butchering this, but there was a Reddit thread about it, and I guess there is a tradition in Japan of like watching the first sunrise and the first sunset of the new year or something to sort of welcome in the new year, and that's why they did it. And the screenshots looked incredible, and I'm so bummed out that I missed that because I had no idea that was in there. And like, unless you data mine, like, how would you ever know? It was just this like little surprise for people who happened to see it, and I love that. That's so cool.
You know, some of my favorite content, or some of my favorite stuff on from last year on Twitter, were the pictures, Reb, of you and Imran in Animal Crossing, just sitting on a log at night on the beach, looking up at the stars. And when I see stuff like that, it reminds me, or it doesn't even remind me, it just drives home the just the ability that games have to bring us together and make us feel connected to each other in times of, you know, in
times that are
difficult
trying.
times. I mean, right, like yeah, in the most trying of times. Like, we're living through a pandemic right now, and last year around, you know, the March, April, you know, May timeframe, when we're, you know, this is all so new to us, and we're all, you know, the world is going so fast and things are happening and we're all just struggling to catch up. Something like Animal Crossing comes along, right? And I truly believe that Animal Crossing would have been a massive success without the
Absolutely.
pandemic. But
reminder, New Leaf sold a crap ton of copies on the 3DS. Not as many as New
like,
Horizons, but it did sell a lot.
You know, people say, you know, oh, Animal Crossing really, you know, like, was helped because of what was going on. I'm like, I mean, it's one of Nintendo's most popular franchises, but I think that it wasn't even just so much Animal Crossing as that people realized that you know, for individuals who live even just to stay away from each other and can't see each other on a regular basis, video games are a medium that can actually allow us to spend time together, even if that time is virtual and not physical. And with the advent of VR, VR technology is getting more and more innovative every single year. And I, it makes me think of games like Animal Crossing that are able to bring us together when we're not able to be there with each other. And that was just one of the most magical things about the game for me, was the ability to just spend time with friends through what was a very difficult time for everybody. And we were all able to forget the world around us for a little bit. And I think that's the real magic of Animal Crossing to me.
Yeah, it was a really special game to me. I think it'll keep on being a really special game to me, and I'm really glad. I'm glad that a lot of people got exactly what they wanted in New Horizons, and I'm also glad that a lot of people who maybe wouldn't have otherwise touched the series got to try out Animal Crossing and see its magic for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, I got to weigh in because obviously until Reb came along, I was like, people who followed me for a while know I'm like pretty big Animal Crossing nut as well, and my biggest problem was, unfortunately, I fell in love with the series on the GameCube at a friend's place many years ago, and I tried the 3DS one, but the ergonomics of that system just didn't let me play it much. So I basically spent a long time waiting for a home console, like something I could sit on my couch with a actual controller and just play on my TV. And I bought a Wii U because I was like, man, this is a slam dunk, and that didn't work out. But so it was so nice after so long to be able to just play this kind of game. And obviously I can't, there's been so much said already. I don't know what I can add, but what I'll say is one thing I don't think people mentioned, that, and the one thing I really love about Animal Crossing is games can be overwhelming. Games can be a lot. And Animal Crossing is a game that you can get a lot out of or a little bit out of. I don't come back to it 4 months later and I'm not like, fuck, I don't know where I was in this 20-hour story. Or, I don't remember all of these 100 different combos and stuff like that. I'm like, I jump right back in. I'm like, all right, I can go fish and I can go swim and I can go hang with some friends and I can just go tend to these flowers. Its simplicity is so refreshing, and that's one of the things I love about it. But it also, there's a lot more under the surface than you'd initially think, and I think it's a very cleverly deceptive game that way, and that's one of the things I love about it.
I want more triple A games like it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, me too.
So John,
okay,
next?
so who we got next? You know what? Is CJ still there?
Well, we need to save
right.
CJ and Jeff's
I'm
pick.
here.
Oh, there he is. There he is.
Yeah, what happened?
Derek, why don't you pick who goes next? Why don't you pick what's next?
You know what, Justin? Why don't you talk to us about your game of the year?
Big busted.
So, it probably won't come as much of a surprise what my game of the year was. I already talked about it at length on our game of the generation episode. But for me, it was Last of Us Part 2.
That's very surprising to me. I was not expecting this.
For me, it was a very strange experience because I haven't had many experiences with a piece of media like I have with Last of Us Part 2. Because for me, that game hit. I had been unemployed for 6 months. It was in the midst of the pandemic where I've been cooped up by myself. And my grandmother was dying. And, I'm a huge fan of the first game as well. And going into it, it allowed me to work through a lot of shit that I was going through in my personal life. Kind of in a weird, safe way. And I've never really had that kind of experience with a piece of media before. I was just kind of a raw bundle of emotion when I was going through it. And the fact that the game takes you places where you don't really want to go. And you don't have the choice to turn around. You have to, in a year where I was continually being taken places I didn't want and had to keep going. It was cathartic and useful for me in a way that I don't think I've ever experienced with anything. There's so many things about it that is just so personally geared towards like what I was going through at the time and what I cared about, going from the first game to the second game, because I was also kind of skeptical of 2 because I thought the marketing for it was awful. But thankfully it kind of made me have low expectations for what it was going to be. And then, I was very, very happy with what it ended up being. And I don't think anything can sum up my year better than this, where in some of the darkest moments and most hopeless moments, like there's also a lot of love and a lot of kindness. And that's what this meant to me. Like, and the funny thing is, like, I actually disagree with a lot of people that actually do really like the game on why they liked the game, because, for me, I had a very different experience with it. And I'm never going to be able to separate it from where I was when I could go on and on, but like it was something that I really needed at the right time, and I really carried that with me throughout.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a whole lot of people who cry in the future listening to a Pearl Jam song that they'd never heard of before, and that doesn't happen.
Or Take On Me.
that doesn't happen because a game didn't touch people in some way. I mean, for all of the talk and the discourse that I would like us to leave behind about, about violence and about harshness and about all these things, I think where The Last of Us was truly special was in the tender moments and in the humanity of it and in the quiet parts in between all of it. I'm with you. I'm never going to forget that game.
Yeah, like I was really... Sorry, go ahead, Justin.
There's the optional moment where you're exploring and you find a guitar and Ellie picks it up and you play a cover of Take On Me, and she plays it for her girlfriend, and they talk about when they were at like a campfire and they both really liked each other and didn't know like how to talk to each other about it and stuff like that. And it's one of like the sweetest, most tender moments that I've seen in anything. And like it's a completely optional thing, and it was it was so worth exploring and finding that one guitar in that one, busted up music shop in Seattle.
Yeah, like I was really close to making this my game of the year. I ended up choosing something else, but a lot of the pre-release discussion was very negative in terms of like the content and the violence. And I mean, it is a very violent game and it's a very dark game, but and some of that was because they showed a really weird torture trailer. But the game, one of the reasons I love it is I think the game actually does have a lot of lighter moments and a lot of really touching and sincere moments. And there's a surprising amount of warmth that you wouldn't necessarily get from playing it. Like, yes, it does have some really ugliness to it because that's one of the themes in the game. But it's just a very human game. And Naughty Dog, I mean, they're not perfect, but in my opinion, as far as writing goes, they're one of the few, if not the only developers that I feel like writes people that talk like people. Like, usually when I'm playing a game, even good writing in games, I'm quite often like, okay, this is really good, this is really funny, but it's a video game. And the characters in this game, and in particular, just they talk like, they feel like real people. I feel like this is a real conversation. This is how people would actually talk. This is how they would react, and I love that, and it makes it that much more powerful. And yeah, the ability for them to like, I'm not gonna spoil anything still, but there's an event that happens very early on in the game that pissed me off a lot and pissed a lot of people off, and it seems like a lot of people never got over it, but I did, and I think there's something the way they do the storytelling in this game, and it Joel is not a good guy in the first game, but I think a lot of people just kind of like him because you played as him for like 15 hours. And this game really makes you kind of challenge your own notions of like it made me really confront, like, why do I like this character? Should I like this character? Like, this kind of fucked up. Like, maybe, like, I don't know. I'm not explaining this well, but it's very, very good. And
I mean, the first game was kind of built a lot on the ambivalence that you feel for Joel. And the fact that they managed to continue like that thread of ambivalence and I love this character, I hate what they're doing. I hate this character, I like what they're doing.
People
And
contain
apply it to so many other
multitudes.
members of the cast. Like,
I just think it's
so.
It's sorry, I'll finish real quick. I just want to say,
No, go ahead, bud.
Basically, I had problems with the game, but the reason I regard it so highly is I just think the narrative swings they took are some of the bravest ones I've seen in a AAA game and rightfully so, because it seems like a lot of people didn't like it. But most of these games would take the very safe route, and I think they went somewhere with this, and somewhere that I think was really important, and I think they handled it really well. And I just have a lot of respect for the decisions they made and the type of sequel that they made, because this is not a sequel that I expected.
I did just want to add, I haven't played the last
please, Reb, go ahead.
at all, and it's not a game. But I think it is really interesting to hear what you were describing earlier, Justin and Jeff, about kind of like these really warm and tender moments. I went to this talk at PAX one time talking about cozy games, and they talked about what you think is cozy, like Animal. But they also talked about how games like Dark Souls are also extremely cozy, and the reason why they're cozy is because the majority of Dark Souls is not cozy, but when you get to a bonfire, you have like quiet, feeling safe and feeling protected, feeling like, okay, I can breathe for a second, and all of the darkness is outside and all of the really outside. You have like this one like soft moment. That's coziness, when the darkness is outside, but you are safe, sure about that. And so I think it's interesting to hear you kind of describe sort of a similar feeling in a game. I wouldn't think that feeling would exist.
So I'll be very quick here. What I'll say about The Last of Us 2 is that I think it did two things very well. And I love the game. One, there's a lot of talk about the violence in the game. Just like there was a lot of talk about the violence in the first game. As someone who has seen people at their absolute best and people at their absolute basest, I think these games, particularly The Last of Us 2, capture really well what a post-apocalyptic, completely lawless society would look like. Because when talking about Joel as a character and the fact that Joel does some good things, he does some pretty detestable things. Just as an animal is at its most dangerous when it's cornered and trying to survive. Like, I don't think any of us can really say what we would be willing to do to survive in a world where there were no rules, and everybody's life was at risk. And I think The Last of Us 2 really, really put an exclamation mark on that. And the other thing that I think it did that I really appreciated was it made us question who our heroes are and who our villains are, and what it means to be a hero and what it means to be a villain. And it forced us to understand that in this world that has been ravaged by a plague, and the complete collapse of civilization, oftentimes there really are no heroes and there are no villains. There are just people trying to survive. And that's really what I took away from the game.
Finn, you had something you wanted to throw in there?
I'm just going to build on what everyone said and actually talk about how I really enjoyed the actual game as well, because you could.
Oh yeah, they evolved
every game. Well. Naughty Dog evolves their gameplay and just the openness and the freedom to engage each encounter as you wanted to. It was built off of Uncharted 4, which was built off of the first Last of Us. And I just really enjoyed the actual tweaks and improvements to the gameplay that Last of Us 2 added. On top of all the other stuff everyone already said, I don't want to just rehash that, but that's just another reason I really love this game, is that it was actually a fun and good game to play as well as to experience.
Did you have a standout section or set piece, Finn?
That whole part where you just have the map and you're exploring that one part of Seattle.
I loved that.
And you're just exploring everything and the rope physics aspects of it. Oh, so cool.
So good. Yeah, so good.
So that's my 2 cents.
I remember a tweet about that rope from the guy that programmed it. Like, he was going to be writing up how to do it. and then just said, note to all other programmers, do not do this.
All right, who are we hitting next? Well, not Finn because he has to pop away, I guess. Okay.
I'm gonna go to Brittany.
Bye, bud. Yeah, Brittany.
Let's go to Brit.
Britt, why don't you talk about your game of the year?
Okay, mine is tied for 2, but I'm gonna say the one that doesn't have a lot of votes. I'm going with Bugsnax, because I think it was 1, a phenomenal launch game, and 2, just a really good game on its own. The best thing, so any game, my top games are always games that make me feel, I guess, emotionally in some ways, like games that surprise me emotionally, that draw out, they make me want to keep going back to them. And Bugsnax was not a game that I thought I was going to get emotionally vested in.
Yeah, me neither.
I would not have thought that.
So it just looked like a game, right? It was like Pokemon Snap and like Animal Crossing, and I'm very much into those cute, fun games. So I knew immediately like I wanted to play Bugsnax. I just didn't realize how much I was gonna like it, 1, and 2, how it was just so easy to dive into in such a hard, weird time. Like I was going through stuff personally, I was starting a new job, and even when I didn't feel like doing anything else, I was always like, man, I really want to go turn somebody's arm into a fucking burrito. Like, it's just such a fun, silly game. And it's not something that you would expect from that type of game, right? A food game. It's about food and snacks. And, like, it has this great in-depth story that you wouldn't expect whatsoever from this game that looks so silly, has such a silly concept, and
you wouldn't expect it to be so diverse and just.
And that's what I was just about to say next. Yeah, so the diversity in the game is really what drew me in. Like right off the bat, they have a gay couple, and not only do they have one gay couple, they have 2 gay couples, and one of them is a himbo named Chandlo. He's so Yuri Lowenthal voices him, and he's so cute and pure and stupid and good. He's just wonderful. Like there's one, like the first part of the game, it's like you're helping him train and you're catching these bug snacks for him, and you go catch waffles for him, and he gets a waffle arms, and you're like, this is so stupid, but he's so happy. Like how could I not enjoy this? He is a conspiracy theorist nerd boyfriend. It's just like my ideal like character tropes, like, you know, like the big himbo, and then you got the nerdy guy, and it's just, they have so many characters. They have a they them character, they have, you know, a small character that's with a big character, and there's just so much diversity in the characters, and there's so much personality to this game that's like what 10 hours. It's not that long.
It's
but
basically
it feels,
Pokemon Snap meets Muppets.
Yeah, it feels so much bigger than it actually is, just based on the characterization and the story alone. Like it's so much more than let's go catch bugs next.
Yeah, and then the first time you realize there's boss fights in the game, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
and the whole ending just fucking twists everything on its head. And it's such a good game.
The ending is totally. I mean, I'm not going to say any spoilers for anybody that wants to play. It really sets up a good ending, and it's almost kind of like the Mass Effect 2 ending in a way. Like you have to do all the right things. Just I'm not going to say anything else, but just it's such a good, it's just a good game that I think people who normally wouldn't want to try this type of game based on its looks alone, you should get into it, because it does have an awesome message. And you know, the gameplay it's just secondary. It's just everything else that makes this game so fucking wonderful. And I just kept coming back to it. Like, even to this day, I'm like, I think about Bugsnax. Like, just a few days ago, I was like, man, I wish I had more Bugsnax to play. Maybe I'll restart the game, you know? Like, It's just a wonderful, cozy little game.
Well, we all agree Chandler's the best Grumpus, but what was your favorite Bug Snacks, and why is it Scoopy Banoopy?
It's Scoopy Banoopy. Scoopy Banoopy is the best Bug Snack.
Wait,
I don't know who this is, but the name alone.
He is a giant ice cream sundae or a
He
banana
literally
split.
follows you and he goes,
I gotta look this up now.
Banoopy.
I gotta look this up.
Scoopy Banoopy is the best. Saki lost her shit when they announced that was one of the voices.
Oh my god. And that's like another great thing about the game. So not only is there great like Grumpus characters, like characters, but the food, like there's so much personality to like a fucking burger that has curly fries for legs. Like you wouldn't
What the
expect
hell am I looking at?
Like
It is
Scoopy
a
Banoopy.
it's basically
so
like a
good.
mastodon but made out of a banana split. And the best part is you can catch a Scoopy Banoopy or you can blow him up and he turns into 5 separate Bug Snacks.
Yeah,
The
because
ice
Bug
cream-
Snacks,
I just linked Scoopy Banoopy in the chat. if
Oh,
anybody wants to see
Scoopy
it.
Banoopy is fucking the best.
Yeah.
And
I
he-
just gotta
Wow.
say, the Bug Snacks are great. I really like the Grumpuses, and I will never get over the one at the beginning that greets you and says, "You're the journalist." I have that. The clip that Gene Park pulled when that was shown in a trailer. I have that bookmarked, and that clip I have played that for myself to motivate myself so many times in the last few months.
You are the journalist.
You're the journalist.
You're
are
the
the
journalist.
There's like
Brad,
little
that's
side
true.
quests to recruit the characters, and then when you do recruit the characters, you have like side quests for those characters, and it's just so stinking fun, you guys. It's such a good feel good game, and I think we need a lot more of those games.
Yeah, so it's funny because I didn't play Bug Snacks. I haven't yet. I'm actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know if I have the ability to play it. Is it only on the next gen systems?
No, it's on PS4.
It's on
Oh,
It's on
okay, I can get it on
PC.
It was just
PS4.
It's on
free for
PC and
PS5.
PS4.
It's on PC.
It's on
There we
PS2
go.
also. Yeah.
But like, it's weird because this game, when you see the trailer, you go, this is going to be weird. And then you hear, it's like Pokemon Snap. Okay, well, I'm kind of in. Oh, it is a surprisingly deep story. I wouldn't have expected that. There's a lot of queer representation in Bug Snacks.
Why
Like,
is everyone?
I'm
Why is
here.
everyone so surprised this game is weird? This is Young Horses developed this. You know what else they've developed? Octodad.
Octodad.
That makes
Octodad,
sense,
yeah.
actually.
What the hell
I
was
never played
everyone
Octodad, but I've
expecting?
heard the stories.
Octodad was legit good
It's a great
too.
game.
I really
It's a
liked
great game.
Octodad.
I love their story. I will not get into. We need to be timely here, but Young Horses is a studio. It was a group of people that met in college in a game development program and made Octodad. And then a group of them, after graduating, decided, you know what, this is good. Let's keep making this. And then they kept working on it and made Dadliest Catch. And now they're the studio that made Bug Snacks. Great.
Oh, I just love it. I'm just
But
so
that's-
happy that weird stuff like that can exist.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like I love like games like that where you just have colorful characters and worlds, and it's fun and silly and serious. Like it hit all the good things on like a Britney. If there was like a Britney video game checklist, that would have like ticked off a whole bunch.
Yeah. Oh, Bug Snacks. Does anybody else have anything else to say before we move on?
It's fucking great, and
Literally
the
have
song.
never
The
played
song's
song-
lit.
I know.
Well, the song when Spotify gave me my 2020 Wrapped thing, the Bug Snack song, even though it only counted for 3 weeks, was my number 2 played song of the year. I could, in fact, sing it all for you verbatim right now.
After one of our podcasts, I was really drunk. I DoorDashed McDonald's, and I was just laying in my bed eating chicken nuggets while that song was playing.
And you were
Just-
happy for the first time in ages.
I was like,
Which
"Life
part of your
isn't so
body?
bad."
Which part of your body were you hoping turned into a chicken?
Oh my god, I don't know. My fingers, cheeky nuggy things.
Cheeky fingers.
Fingies.
Oh my God.
That's good.
Finn, my man, talk to us about your game of the year.
No, thank you. In fact, I'm going, and I'm first going to mention Saki's game of the year because she requested me to briefly mention it. So I will right here, and it is Sackboy, A Big Adventure for the PS5. We have been playing that game.
game's great.
In co-op, it is phenomenal. The music levels are something you never would have expected if you didn't know about them going in. There's an underground level where the entire background music is an instrumental version of Madonna's Material Girl.
Oh God.
And the way the levels pulsate to the music, and outside, like one of the biggest jumps in quality from the original trilogy is that the actual gameplay is tight and focused and actually feels good. The platforming feels good. It doesn't feel all floaty like the original games. And the co-op levels are just brilliantly designed, and we have just been having a blast. We're going for the platinum. We've beaten every level so far without dying. We've gotten every item, and it's just so much fun to play. Fucking Sackboy, man.
I love that game. There's one moment with the licensed music. Like, I knew there was some licensed songs and stuff in it, and then there was one level I was starting, and then Britney Spears' Toxic starts playing.
Yep.
And I wish I had a face cam for her when I was playing that level and Toxic came on, because one, the level's amazing, but two, I was so taken aback by that song.
Yeah, but okay, so I didn't mean to actually derail us too far with that, but I promised Saki I would mention her game of the year. And so if you haven't played Sackboy, go play it. It's awesome. My game of the year was a toss-up between a couple of them, but I eventually settled on Ghost of Tsushima because the game just wowed me in every regard, especially coming from the studio that started like basically the PlayStation 4 era with Infamous Second Son. And now they bookended the entire generation, bring Ghost of Tsushima, and it's so different than their previous games. I love the exploration aspect and how instead of using arrows and markers, it used the wind, or a fox would pop up or a bird would fly by, and that would be your indication that something was cool nearby. And nothing in 2020 made you feel more badass than when you were doing a duel and you would take down like 5 enemies with single sword strikes in a row, and then trigger your ghost mode, and the whole screen goes black, red, and white, and everyone starts scattering afraid of you. The game made you feel so good when you played it, and the best part was, like, no matter how you wanted to play it, it felt natural. It wasn't like you could go the whole game pure stealth style, and it felt like you could because it was about the Ghost of Tsushima, or you could go in the honorable way and just take on people head on with the dual challenge system, and that also felt perfectly reasonable. And the story was way better than I ever would have expected, right up to the ending with the most heartbreaking like final choice, the final quote unquote boss fight that capped the storyline. Just I had to, it's the first time I actually beat a game and then reloaded a previous save just so I could see what the other choice would have done, because it was so beautiful. And speaking of beautiful, the game is gorgeous. I have never spent so much time in a photo mode in a game, because you just, everywhere you could turn, it's just a vista with the perfect lighting, and the leaves are swirling, and you're just like, holy shit, this looks so good. Click, and you spend 5 minutes taking the perfect photo, and then you climb a mountain to go do a shrine. You're like, oh, look at that fucking view. Got to do it again. I don't know how much time I spent in that photo mode. I am just rambling now, but Ghost of Tsushima, I love open world action games. Like the Ubisoft open world formula is my jam. I know it gets a lot of shit, but it is just like a needle into my vein how much I love the endorphin rush of clearing the map. And Ghost of Tsushima just did it so well. And the side quests were so good, especially your companion quest. Like there was I'm trying to think of like aspects of the game that I did not care for as much, and I'm not coming up with anything. Like everything was just so well done. And it's crazy because it reminds me of when Guerrilla switched from Killzone to Horizon, and you're just like, wow, that's completely different than what you're used to making, and it was so good. And that's what Sucker Punch did. Like I loved Infamous and I loved Sly Cooper, but Ghost of Tsushima was not what I was expecting from them. And I out of all the big final PlayStation games, that was the one I expected the least from. And it's the one that blew me away the most. So
the multiplayer is good too.
Yes, and then they added a
Fuck, man.
fucking dope ass
Bro.
multiplayer mode, and you got
For
to
free.
unlock like these costumes based on other PlayStation franchises. And it was free. It was
Bro.
great.
So I have not played Ghost either due to a lack of Sony. But it's interesting. One of the criticisms that I've heard of Ghost of Tsushima is that it doesn't really do anything innovative. It's just kind of like a really good version of a lot of, trends and a lot of like gameplay styles that we've seen come up in the last, decade or so. And that's used as a criticism, but every time I hear that, I'm like, why? That sounds fucking great. Like, if you're doing all of these things that we've already figured out really, really well, isn't that, kind of the ideal, right? Instead of games like Cyberpunk doing a lot of things that we already know how to do very poorly. I don't know. It sounds like a really good game. Honestly, it sounds like a game that I want to play once I have a Sony in my hands, simply because I do, the stealth stuff that you've just described to me sounds like the kind of Assassin's Creed gameplay that I deeply miss. But it also sounds like it's very pretty, and I like looking at very pretty games. And I'm glad you liked it so much. That's actually a ringing endorsement for me. I might pick that up once I have a Sony around.
Like
A Sony. I just like that's what
Jeff,
you
go ahead.
call a PlayStation.
Sony. I don't have any of the Sonys.
My shirt needs to change, so it just says the Sony.
The Sony.
No, I'll chime in really quickly. It's actually really good timing. I just bought this game last week. I had a really tough time getting a read on it from like their marketing and previews. I couldn't tell if it was like kind of game I'd like. I'm like Finn, like I like my open world Ubisoft bullshit, but I also get really burned out on them. And so I'm always like a little hesitant. I'm always like, am I in the mood for this? And waiting for it was really good. I'm playing on PS5. It's like Finn said, it's beautiful. It's not the most technically like accomplished game. Like if I look at like certain aspects of like the textures, if I'm like really nitpicking, I play a lot on PC. I'm like, there's other games that do individual things better, but I think where this game really shines is its art direction. And it's a testament, kind of like Breath of the Wild, where it's like games don't have to technically be the best looking game, but the way that the like costume design and the world design and the colors, it's just a very cohesive visual identity, and it knows what it wants to look like, and it's fucking gorgeous. And all the rest of the stuff doesn't even matter.
And shout out to
Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, shout out to Jin Sakai and whoever played the main characters in this game, because everyone is just like a middle-aged regular person, and you're so used to the main characters of a game being like super attractive younger people, and almost everyone you play as
I thought
is either
Jin was like 20.
No, he's like 30, and then like half the people you team up with are his elders.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And Jin's just a normal-looking dude. I mean,
30 years old, practically a senior citizen.
I mean, in ancient Japan, sure.
I mean, yeah,
We're
to me,
getting
you guys
a lot-
are.
Also, this is completely unrelated, but Ghost of Tsushima was so good that the fans of the game donated a shit ton of money, and Sucker Punch donated to the shrine at Tsushima that was damaged by a tsunami. And fans of the game banded together to raise money to repair it.
That's
And I just think that's
super
fucking awesome. Like, come on.
That's cool.
Yeah, so two things real quick, and then I think Justin wanted to weigh in. But and on Finn's note there, it reminded me a lot of Assassin's Creed Origins and Bayek, whereas like these are two people. Like, okay, Jin is like kind of like a nephew of like an important, like he's like part of an important family, but he's not like a chosen one. He's not super powered, and like so much of the game, I'm still early on, but it just feels like you're like a regular guy just trying to do good in the world. And like some people might think that's boring or the story is a little dull, and I'm like, I kind of like just existing in this world and helping these people on this little farm or these people in this little village. And the third thing I like is it's an open world game, and I open the map and there's not 1,000 fucking icons. Like, I think they did a really good job gradually introducing things and gradually having things here and pop up. But like, there's always a very few things, and I can go seek out more stuff if I want it, but I don't feel overwhelmed. And I think that's like, I don't know, the open world in this game is really awesome. There's enough stuff that it's interesting, but I don't feel like everywhere I ride, there's like 1,000 things pulling my attention every direction. I can just walk or ride through the forest for like 5 minutes and just have a good time and just like breathe in the world. So that's really all I got to say.
I've never actually played Ghost of Tsushima, and it's not something I'm going to play
really
anytime soon. Justin, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, buddy.
Everybody said a lot of what I wanted to say about this game, but one thing I think has been really, really cool to see is I don't know if you've seen like some of these lists of like Japanese developers talking about some of their favorite games of this year, but like a lot of Japanese developers have been like, Ghost of Tsushima was amazing. I can't believe we didn't make this kind of thing. And I can't imagine what it must be like for the team to see praise like that from like legendary Japanese game developers, like people that have been making stuff for a really long time, like loving their product that much. Like I think it just shows off, they did a lot of research and put in the work to, to do like the homage to like Kurosawa and like that kind of samurai film, and put it in game form really well. So yeah, no, it was one of those games that like it just flat out it just does everything it sets out to do really, really well and nothing else. And I was very pleased with it.
Do we have anything else on Ghost of Tsushima?
I relinquish my time to the Senate, so
I yield my time. Fuck you.
I was going to say better than that.
The gentleman from Canada is recognized next. Derek is.
I think it would be me, and then it would be Jeff TJ, and then it would be the you and Britt, and honestly half the podcast. To be real. So my game of the year pick is Spiritfarer, which is a smaller indie game that probably not a lot of you played, and a lot more of you need to. Who on the show played Spiritfarer? I know Reb did, and Finn. Okay, so it's just the three of you. Okay. Spiritfarer is something really special. In a lot of the same ways that Animal Crossing is, it's a game that is very wholesome, and it's very much about interacting with care and interacting with love rather than a game that is about violence. And don't get me wrong, I played and loved a lot of violent games this year, but Spiritfarer was just something that felt very fulfilling to play and to gather up these characters and to take on their quests. So the basic concept of Spiritfarer is that your character is taking over for Charon as the new, like you're going to shepherd souls into the afterlife. You're going to help them come to terms with the end of their life and help them fulfill their last requests, and then take them to the spirit door and send them along to whatever is in the great beyond. And it is a truly beautifully written game. It is incredibly, what is the word I am looking for? It is not ashamed to be emotional, and it wears its emotion on its sleeves. It is very true to itself in that regard. I definitely cried a lot playing the game. And I mean, as in, there are a lot of times where I teared up somewhat, and then there are 3 separate occasions where I was like full on ugly crying, like snotty, had to blow my nose afterwards. It is a powerfully affecting game, but it's not a sad game. Almost no part of it is really sad. I mean, there's sadness to it, but all of that sadness is in what is in the past, right? Because as you come to terms with what may have been in some of these characters' stories that may still be attached to them, that they're still lingering and they're trying to move beyond, eventually you are bringing them peace. And that's really beautiful. And there's one character story in particular, which ends up being, a lot of it's very metaphorical, right? Like it's all these animal people, and their stories end up being what you work through with them. You kind of have to interpret what that means to some degree. And there is I'm going to try to keep this spoiler free, so I'm not naming the character, but there's a character whose story ends up being a metaphor for cancer. They're dying of cancer, and their story is about them coming to terms with the fact that they need to stop fighting it, that they are not going to beat it, and that they can simply die in peace, with love for what they've accomplished in life and the people they loved in life. And that's really hard for me. I very nearly lost my own mom to cancer a long time ago. However many years. I can't count time anymore because it's all a circle at this
None of
point.
us can.
But I very nearly lost my mother to lung cancer. And it was the hardest thing I've ever been through emotionally. And I watched, like, she had almost no chance of surviving, and it's a miracle that she's here today. But we went through that cycle, and we went through preparing to lose her, and preparing for what the world would be without her. And, it is, I felt that all over again. And it was a very sad but beautiful thing. And there's a lot of catharsis to that. So I've taken up a lot about this. I know that only Reb and Finn really have a lot to say about this game. So I will yield to y'all. But yeah, I think everybody should give it at least a shot. It's not super long, but it's gorgeous.
Yeah, I loved it. I love that game so much. I think I don't know that I have anything more to say about what you did, but I thought, without spoiling it as well, but the characters Alice absolutely destroyed me. Alice, because that her story in particular, and anyone who's played the game knows exactly what this was. This one was especially hard because I think that for the demographic that plays this game, like usually there's one character that you can relate to of all the others, but I think Alice was a really familiar story for a lot of people in our age group, because we've all had, not all, but many of us have had a relative in that precise situation, and I have too. And so that one was really, really hard. And that was kind of what I meant when I said that I think that there is some, like, actual sadness in this game, because I think her story is the closest the game ever gets to being, like, really genuinely sad, because that one's not as...
It's brutal.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's not as... Yeah, I don't, it's hard. But Stanley I thought was hard, specifically because by the time you meet Stanley, you know what's going to happen to all these characters, and you meet him and you realize who he is. And like the second you meet him, you're like, oh no, I don't want to go through this with this character. I know how this is going to go, and I do not want to do this. But you do, and it ends up being what it is, and it's, lovely. And I liked the ending of the game as well. I don't want to say too much more about that, but I like how the game structured its ending. I thought it was kind of a bolder choice to structure it in such a way that the characters at the end are ones that you are not as attached to, for certain reasons. But I think that the pacing ended up working really, really well with kind of what Stella has to do and the decisions she has to make, and kind of choosing whether or not to hang around for certain events, or choosing to just go to the end of the game right away. But yeah, I don't know. It was really good. It was really affecting. It was really beautiful. It also was a good management sim. Like, I enjoyed that too.
Yeah, it was just
bounced around the boat. It was good.
Really fun to co-op and fish and build and cook and do all of those things, with Martha.
Yeah, just trying to manage all of the spirits' moods to try and, like, raise them. Was an aspect I wasn't expecting to enjoy so much. But I just, to build off of what you said so we can move on, though, is just, this is such a pretty game. The animation and the music and just the graphical, like, everything about it just makes you feel wholesome when you play it.
Yeah.
Also, the animation when you're playing co-op of the cat floating down.
Yes, Imran and I were doing that. He was playing the cat, and, like, I'd be running around the boat doing chores, and he'd just be...
Yeah, because it's amazing. It's the best thing. So
that exact noise.
I just wanted to point out that just all the aesthetic stuff about the game is also just completely on point to go along with the message of the game.
Yeah. Also, like, the fact that there's a dedicated hug command, but also that, like, you can offer to hug somebody and they can be like, no, you know what? I'm okay right now. Maybe later. Like, it's a very, like, it's both very, like, wholesome, but it's also just a very good message, especially for, like, younger people that, like, hey, hugs are great. Sometimes people don't want to hug, but that's okay. Yeah. They may later. It's fine.
And a character specifically later on who says, like, you hug them the first time and they're like, I do not want hugs. Do not hug me.
Yes, and it never becomes okay.
No, well...
Does it? Oh, it never did for me. I don't know.
Did you finish that character?
I did. Maybe I just don't remember. I know who you're talking about. Maybe I don't remember.
Yeah, but it's you still get the hug command, but you have to remember that about that character, that they don't like them.
Yeah.
And don't do it. It's really good.
Yeah, just it's a beautiful game. It's a lovely game. Despite the fact that it's a game that I said up front made me cry repeatedly. I do think it's a game more people should play, but I also think more people should cry more. I think that's healthy. I think that is a good release of emotions, and to do so in like a good, wholesome, well-written way is I think there's a catharsis to it. So
yeah, I do think, kind of in response to what John said in the chat, I do think that if you have recently dealt with death, or if you have a really like affecting personal experience with death, then maybe like if you really want to play it, like maybe ask some people who have played it, like if it's going to have like a moment that you need to prepare yourself for. I think that's okay.
Yeah, that's
it
fair.
could just I don't have a whole lot of really like close to my heart death. You know, I've had older family pass away. But like I could see it affected me a lot, and I could see this if you were somebody who has recently, you know, gone through something like that. You just maybe be prepared. You're gonna feel some stuff.
So that's actually why I haven't played the game yet, because it came out like a week or two after my grandma passed, and the main character is named Stella, which is the same name as my grandma.
Yeah.
And given the theme is this game, I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna wait a little bit on this game.
Totally fair.
I'll probably play it sometime. I'll probably play it sometime soon. And I'm glad to hear it delivered, because I was really, really into it, and it sounds like it kind of does some of the same things. Kind of why I loved like What Remains of Edith Finch.
Yeah, a lot of the same emotional notes in a lot of ways.
So I really do want to play it.
Yeah,
it's good.
Yeah, as like, you know, it sounds wonderful, but I was just thinking, you know, like as somebody, like, you know, right now my closest childhood friend is dying of cancer. You know, like I'm not sure that, you know, I'm just not sure that this is something that I could do right now. But it might, you know, later on down the road, it sounds like it might be a nice form of catharsis.
I think so. I really do. I really
think it
do.
is. I think it's okay to take some space. I don't think playing it in the throes of grief is maybe the best decision.
No.
Yeah, like same thing. Like Justin, I also lost my grandma this year, who was very close to me. So it's same thing. Like the game looks fantastic, but I need, you know, like all of us, we need a little bit of separation, I think, before we're ready to tackle that. But I can't wait to play it when I'm in the right mindset for it.
Yeah. Well, if we don't have anything more to say about Spiritfarer, we can move to the first of two games that got multiple votes. So CJ, why don't you maybe take the lead on this one that you and Jeff both nominated?
Okay. I want to start with the story about it, and just to prove that I can get overly sentimental about any game. So yeah, this pandemic has been awful. This year has been awful. I mean, you know, the world's essentially falling apart. It's eating itself almost. My personal life is like fluctuating between, you know, unemployment and just bouts of just pure sadness. But you know, all of that sort of stopped on one night, September 3rd at 9 p.m. Eastern, when a game preloaded on my PlayStation and downloaded it unlocked. And I found myself just tearing up at this full motion video of a bunch of old guys skateboarding and these younger kids skateboarding, and Rage Against the Machine's Guerrilla Radio like started playing, and I thought, holy shit, this feeling is back. And with that, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 is my game of the year, because it transported me to a place that I never thought I'd return to. When I was 6 years old, I was given a copy of Pro Skater 3 from my uncle, and it had become like the greatest thing I'd ever played, to the point where I had, up until this game came out, I had a PS2 with an HDMI adapter, you know, hooked up to my TV just so I can keep playing Pro Skater 4 over and over again. Because I thought to myself, this will never come back. We're never gonna get another a Tony Hawk game. We're never gonna get another Tony Hawk game. You know, we're never gonna get this style of game back. And when it was announced, I was like, holy shit! It's completely unfair to any other game coming out. It's absolutely unfair that how can anything else compete? You know, a few things about it. I never played the first two, actually. So this was my sort of introduction to it. This was my sort of introduction to a lot of these maps, a lot of these things, but it all felt familiar because I had gotten so used to the gameplay. They brought a lot of the moves from Pro Skater 3 back. And Jeff, you can help me out here because I'm
Oh, the revert? Oh no, did we lose CJ?
He's back. He's back. His internet is being unkind to him.
Oh man, yeah.
There you go. You're back.
The revert and the manual, right? They brought those in from 2.
Yeah, they brought them in from 3. So I'm like, holy shit, I am back. This is heaven. No, it's fine. Okay, Finn, just to kind of so no, I didn't get the game in 2001. I got the game in 2003.
No, that makes it even better.
I'm very young, but I
was 23 in 2003,
and but yeah, so I was back to where I was. I was very comfortable with the way it played. It became this obsession of mine, right? I stopped playing Modern Warfare for like a month just so I could do these daily challenges.
6?
These I was 6 in 2000. Yes, yeah.
CJ, you're small.
Stop saying it. Stop saying it.
Yes.
Keep going.
No, it's just he's like, I was playing so much Modern Warfare. I'm like, bro, you were 6.
No, I'm
Come
talking
on.
I'm talking about now. I'm talking about like I stopped playing Modern Warfare.
Okay.
I stopped playing Modern Warfare.
We love CJ.
But again, I feel like I'm rambling too much. I even wrote stuff down, but like it's all kind of like jumbled now. It's just a great game. It really is. It really captures the spirit of what I've been wanting for the longest time. I'm someone who likes games that are very straightforward, that focus on sort of one mechanic. That sort of thing of like just moving forward is enough for me to love a game, and that's what Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 like does. Also, it's the only game of the year choice that has a Papa Roach song in it, like in my sort of list. So automatically that elevates it beyond any other.
That's it,
bro. Blood Brothers.
Argument over.
Blood Brothers is my anthem now. It is my song of 2020. Hell yeah! I grinded just so I can get a Monster Energy shirt. That's like my dedication to like that game. Like I absolutely adore it. Jeff, so just to transition to you, I remember I think it was last year you started replaying the first game.
Yeah, it's
or second game.
Sorry, you're cutting out for a bit for me. I played them both.
Like,
I
just
think
one. I think you had. You just.
I think it's just buffering through what he already said.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think it was before the remake was even announced. I was like just on a whim because I've got my PlayStation 1 here with my discs, and I've got 1 and 2, and I was like, I was going through like
Okay, I'm back.
Oh no,
my internet's.
We're losing CJ. Am I good?
Yeah, we're losing.
You're good. You're good.
Jeff, you're good. You're good.
Oh, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I mean, like everyone, I was going through a tough time last year. I still am. One day I'll tell that full story. But so I was really searching for that nostalgia comfort. And I played Diddy Kong Racing on the N64, and then I dug up my Tony Hawk 1 and 2 discs. And so yeah, CJ's right. I was actually playing the PS1 versions before I even knew that a remake was coming. I think, which is funny, but it didn't hurt the impact at all. But I also want to start this with a story, and I don't want to take up too much time because we got like one big game left. But I gotta split this into 2 parts because there's like there's the Tony Hawk 1 and 2 remake that came out last year, but there's the legacy of Tony Hawk. And I went on a fun little rant one of our weekly shows when this game came out because I loved it so much. But like much like CJ, like this game had an impact on me, and it's not hyperbole. Like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the first game, literally changed my life. It defined my friends for a decade. It defined where I went in life. I'm a little bit older than CJ, apparently. I was 13 and a little bit younger than John. I was 13 when.
You know what? Shut the fuck up with that, okay?
I was 13 when the first game came out. Obviously, a very influential age. But like these games, people don't quite remember how big a fucking deal these games were. Like skateboarding exploded. I played this game. I started skateboarding, but like that's where I'm going with this. I made friends. Like I was at the skate park. I was at our local skate parks for like 12 hours a day for 5 years. I made all my friends there because of Tony Hawk Pro Skater. Tony Hawk Pro Skater introduced me to like Bad Religion, which introduced me to Social Distortion, Stiff Little Fingers, like Black Flag. I got into the punk scene, and like all my friends for the next 10 years were in punk bands. Like I was going to like all these local shows and just meeting all these new people, and like that's where all my social connections came from, and that like defined my life for like a huge portion of it. because of the stupid skateboarding game. So, like, I'm gonna get emotional here, but like,
Yeah.
I cannot describe the impact that this had on me, the feelings that it gave me, and not just that. So then let's talk about the game. Like, the game was fucking phenomenal. These games were amazing. It was just like a combination of everything, like the level design, the music, the gameplay itself. It was like arcadey, but still really skill based. And from that perspective, you know, there was another remake that came out last year that was like, people were like, oh, this has a big legacy to live up to. Well, Tony Hawk had a big legacy to live up to, and they released a like HD version of it, kind of like a remix for the PS3, I think. And it didn't go over really well because these games have a feel to them. They have like a really distinct feel. Like when you catch air off a half pipe and you come back down, like there's a certain amount of time that you're in the air. There's a way that your player reacts when you hit a rail, or like it's hard to describe it. It's muscle memory, especially for people like us that played a lot of these games. You have a muscle memory. Like, I know how long this takes. I know how quick I have to mash this button. And it's really important to get that right. And they actually remade this from the ground up, and they still kept that. It still felt like the same game. And that is so hard to do.
It's the greatest remake I've ever played. Hands down.
Oh, it is. It's so fucking good. It's so fucking good.
I forgot about Jeff's prayer to Tony Hawk. That's
very good. I just posted it in chat. It's very
fantastic. Yeah.
I love how much you guys love these. Like, this makes me
was
really
like
happy
the
to
best
hear.
moment.
I didn't play Tony Hawk 1 or 2, or Tony Hawk 1 and 2. I played 3. I played 3 because when I was a teenager, I babysat a kid who had 3, and for a while that was all he wanted to play. And so I was terrible at this game. Like, I didn't understand how to play that game, but I remember how many hours we sat, you know, passing the controller back and forth, you know, skating around, I don't know, Alcatraz? I don't even remember, like, what all the locations were. But it was such a really cool game, and I have, like, the tiniest little sparkle of that feeling that you all are describing, and I'm glad that you loved it so much.
It's the only game I'm good at.
Yeah.
And that's a huge thing. Like, I'm competent at this game. Like, I managed to like rack up like millions of points on like online once out of spite just to beat my cousin in one of those like point challenges. I'm like, yeah, you know what, fuck it, I'm gonna do this. So that also like means a lot to me.
I will say the one downside of this remake is that the first game came out before social media, before leaderboards. So I thought I was really good at these games, and then I played the new ones, and then I like started looking at like Twitter and like the combos people were posting.
No, people are way better than me. Like, I'll never go up. But like in my vicinity and in my sort of like social group. Oh yeah, totally. Okay, like even.
I also love that they committed to like aging the characters to their real life ages. This has really been an excellent year for grown-up ass protagonists. I like that. Good.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this in my rant on our other show, but like we have to give a shout out to the representation in this game, because there's some really, like, it has a lot of the original skaters, so there's still a lot of white guys, but like the new skaters they brought in, there's some really fucking good representation there. And I don't think a lot of people expected that in a Tony Hawk game, because skateboarding historically is not a super inclusive sport.
It respects the attitude of skateboarding, but it also modernizes it in this wonderful way that like it feels it's ripped straight from the early 2000s, late 90s, but it doesn't have those same like those gross attitudes.
And you know what? You can't be punk and also want things to stick to being only old white dudes. Like that's not the nature of punk.
This game is more punk than fucking Cyberpunk 2077.
Well, that's not hard.
That's basically it. The game with the actual punk soundtrack is.
Yeah. The people who developed the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, they have rights and they get to show up to punk concerts without getting their asses kicked. So they get to come to the Highlands in Louisville. Yeah, I didn't play Tony Hawk 1 or 2 originally. I think I played 3, and then I really started playing from Underground 1 onward. But 1 and 2 was just such a good... It was a nostalgia trip, even though I didn't play those two games. Like, it was very comforting. And it was just a lovely thing to have to go back to every so often. So
I don't want to drag this anymore.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
Jeff, can I ask you one thing? Just because, again, like, you get it. Would you pay like a full $60 for them to just release 3 by itself as a remake?
I would pay well, I'm in Canada, so it's gonna be like $90. But I would pay $200.
Straight up the same.
Tony Hawk
For three. If they can,
guys, do not let Bobby Kotick hear this. He will charge you that much money.
Bobby, if you get every song in that game,
Bobby Kotick is now firing 500 more employees and charging $200 for Tony Hawk 3.
That's the thing. If you keep every single song from that soundtrack, Bobby, remove everything else that's made I will pay straight up like $300. No
And the monkey's stalk curls inward once more.
Stop! You're gonna get your wish. You're gonna get your wish.
I got a new Tony Hawk game. All right, I didn't think that was gonna happen. Like I did not. I woke up from a nap and I saw the trailer on fucking YouTube. All right, like that's how I found out this shit existed. All right, so for me to have this, and let me wish for the fuck out. You guys don't have to buy the fucking $300 Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 remake.
All right. So we got one more game. I know how we are with this series. We can't do 30 minutes on this game.
We can.
We could. We do
Just
not.
watch me. Try and stop us.
Our last game that both John and Brittany originally nominated, and several more of us probably would have if we weren't aware other people were definitely going to nominate it.
That is correct.
Yup.
Is Final Fantasy
VII
VII Remake.
So Final Fantasy VII Remake was my pick for Game of the Year last year. And as the resident dad of the podcast, who is in fact 40 years old, I was 17 years old when Final Fantasy VII originally came out on the PlayStation 1.
How old were you, CJ?
I was born that year. I was born. The same year Titanic came out. I was born.
John has left the chat.
John's gone. He's gone. He's not coming back.
Fantasy 7 while he's gone. All right, so listen.
While he's gone, we finished.
No, it's too fucking late now. Okay, so I'm gonna choose to ignore that, and I'm gonna keep going because I'm an adult, like you children here.
Ooh, John's old. Ooh, hot take.
Please, Reb.
But is he an adult?
But so in 1997, I was a junior in high school, and Final Fantasy VII came out, and at this point, there had never really been a marketing push behind a game like there was behind Final Fantasy VII, right? Like, I remember going to it was EB at the time. GameStop was not a thing back in the Stone Age. It was EB, and they had television set up, and they were playing CG scenes from Final Fantasy VII that look archaic now, but back then it was like, holy shit, this looks fucking amazing. And everybody knows that the first 5 hours of Final Fantasy VII, you're in the city of Midgar. And so when we found out that Final Fantasy VII was getting remade after years and years and years of fans pleading and it being kind of a joke, that Square Enix needs to remake Final Fantasy VII. We learned that it's actually finally happening, right? Like Imran in chat says, you see the train crash through Coral in EB Games. That's one of the scenes I'm talking about that they were playing over and over and over. And I thought to myself, okay, so this game is episodic. It's going to start off in Midgar, so we're looking at a 5-6 hour game, right?
Nothing will ever top that E3, by the way. Nothing will ever top that.
No, that was.
Oh man.
And what we got, and I said this last year, what we got was a full-fledged 45-hour Final Fantasy game. Like, this is a new Final Fantasy game. Yes, it's Final Fantasy VII, but to get into slight spoilers, it's not the Final Fantasy VII that you remember. There are very clear. So Square Enix did something I think that was extremely risky for them.
You mean the same thing that a billion other remakes have done in the last 2 years?
Well, but all
not
those
to
remakes.
Spoil it.
But here's the thing, Derek. All those remakes were one-to-one remakes. Like Shadow of the Colossus was a remake. Final Fantasy VII completely changed the story of Final Fantasy VII, and that's a risky move because we all know how the gamers react to shit like that.
There's a reason why they called it a remake and not a remaster.
Exactly, but it is truly a remake. And one of the most exciting things about the game for me is that I don't know where it's going. Like, the game ends on your party leaving Midgar after 45 hours of what was a 5-hour period of the original game. Your characters leave Midgar, and I don't know what's going to happen next. And that to me, like, you know, the gameplay changes are. I love the battle system. You know, we could talk all day about the new characters and the visuals, but honestly, the thing that stands out about Final Fantasy VII Remake to me is that I don't know what's going to happen next. And that is, I think, the coolest thing that Square Enix could have done with this game.
But it
Go
can
ahead.
also lead into the next story though. That's the thing, right? It's like on the table. It could be this brand fucking new game that we have no idea what's gonna happen, or they could surprise everybody and just continue with the story that they're on with like dripping, you know, new bits here and there like they have been doing. Like that's
I don't
the
see them
beauty
doing
of
that.
it. Like that's the beauty of it though, is that you don't know. Like it could end up being something we're not expecting, because we're expecting something completely different, and it very well could be. But it's also open-ended in the fact that, you know, you still have, you know, you're gonna have to go to certain areas that were from the original game. Like, so there's has to be a loose original theme there, even if it's not 100% the same.
Well, and what's wild is that we've actually had two of the main voice actors from the game on this podcast. And it was especially cool listening to John Eric Bentley, who loved the character of Barrett as a kid, and who grew up playing Final Fantasy VII. It was so amazing to hear him voice his experiences about bringing that character to life in a way that he never. I mean, who could prepare themselves for that?
Well, and I think that's interesting too, because there's been a lot of criticism about the character and portrayal of Barrett in the game, and I think especially like having the opportunity to talk to John Eric Bentley about it. Like, it's clear, once again, like, people and characters contain multitudes. Like, it's really not that straightforward as just thing bad or thing good. Like, thing could be done better, but, like, there's definitely a lot more soul and intention put behind Barrett this time than the original FF7, or any of the expanded FF7 million spin-offs in universe have ever really given him. So,
and also,
yeah.
Derek, one of my favorite moments about Final Fantasy VII was when you finally encountered the Honeybee Inn.
Yeah,
like
half of Twitter was waiting for that to happen.
I was so excited about that.
It was a great time.
I think Twitter
handled...
loved your love of Chadley more.
No,
Chadley, yeah, your love of
Chadley. Chadley is the reason it's Game of the Year.
I've never been pro child abuse, but Chadley's making me want to change my mind.
Technically, it's not child abuse.
It looks like Reb wants to get a word in. Reb.
I kind of wanted to reply to the point that you and Brittany actually. So I have played an amount of Final Fantasy Remake, not a large amount, but I have played some. And if you have listened to SDGC long enough and remember me being on here regularly, you know that I do not care for the original Final Fantasy VII. I think that game sucks.
Yeah, same.
I think it sucks. So I didn't finish Final Fantasy VII, which is fine. But I have read a lot of criticism of the synopsis of the story, and I gotta say, fucking props to Square Enix for what they did to make this remake more than a remake. The thing that John and Brittany are alluding to, without spoiling it, it's some meta bullshit. It's some real good meta bullshit that seems to be, in a way, kind of leaning into a sort of commentary maybe on what we expect from remakes and what we expect a universe to be when we return to it, and what we demand of people to make from remakes. I think that's cool as shit. I love that. I think that is so smart and so interesting. And so, Final Fantasy VII Remake was never going to be my game of the year, but, props to people who are putting it at the top of their list. So, because, that's a really bold thing to do. And I'm excited to watch Imran play through the subsequent releases of Final Fantasy VII Remake, the subsequent episodes, because I don't really want to play this game myself, but I really want to know what they're going to do. I want to know what's the thing.
No, go ahead. No, please.
I was gonna say, this seems like a great time to jump in, because actually, I talked about it on our Game of the Generation show, but up until a year ago, Final Fantasy VII was actually my favorite game of all time. Until Red Dead Redemption 2 and Final Fantasy 14, until I played those. But the only thing I'll say about this, because I want to give everyone else a chance to speak, is coming off that game, like, I play games for the story and I play games for the characters. And the characters in Final Fantasy VII are why I love that original game. And I was so worried about how they were going to come across when they were voiced, because the original, like, old JRPGs are like reading a book to me. I have my own interpretation of how these characters sound, of how they talk, their tones, their inflection, and stuff like that. And I was like really worried about, like, because I'm sorry, I fucking hate Advent Children. I watched that once a long time ago and I hate it. It's fine.
Boo, bad take, boo.
It's fine if people
Advent
like
Children sucked.
And it's fine if people like it. It just wasn't for me. But I love the original game, and I love the characterization in the remake. It felt true to the original characters, but they all felt so much more realized and so much more developed. And that's such a hard thing to do. Like, it feels like you have to pick one or the other, and they found a way to honor the spirit of the characters, but then like ramp that up 1,000% and deliver and like make you fall even more in love with them. So that was my favorite part of the remake, for sure.
When we did our review last year, I actually jumping off Reb's point about how this was I made the illusion that the arbiters of time, which are these phantoms that seem hell bent on keeping the story going the way it's supposed to. I was like, the characters in the game, like the actual party, is Square Enix trying to do something new, and the arbiters of time are the gamers who are like, no, this has to keep going the way I know it. This has to happen the way I remember it. And I almost wonder if that was in fact some meta commentary from Square Enix, and it just like thinking about that makes me chuckle. Finn, you had something to say.
Yes, I just once again I just wanted to build off what everyone else said and point out that Final Fantasy VII has one of my favorite battle systems of any RPG, because it takes everything they learned from Kingdom Hearts 3 and Final Fantasy 15 and builds on it and makes it even better, while also marrying it with the turn-based combat system, the active turn-based combat system that we love so much from 7. And the battles in 7 Remake are part of why I place the original 7 in the bottom part of like the top 10, but 7 Remake is now a top 3 Final Fantasy game for me. Like
For
the
me
game,
too. Yep.
like I loved platinuming this game. Replaying it on hard mode made the battles even better, and just doing all of the just everything, all the side quests, all the bonus fights and everything, the gauntlet at the end that gets you that ultimate item that gives you infinite limit breaks. Like everything about the battle system was so well done that now I'm kind of spoiled. And if Square Enix pumps out a game that doesn't deliver a battle system on that level, I'm gonna be upset.
Dude, it took the Airbuster fight, which was comically easy in Final Fantasy VII, and turned it into a 3-tier, like fucking
the whole
super boss.
game.
It was so awesome.
The whole game would take random bullshit enemies like Hell House and turn them into and turn them into incredibly memorable boss fights.
Hell House was fucking hilarious. I will give it
Hell
House was fucking awesome.
I
just want to, I will post the chat, but I just want to once again, as I do every time Final Fantasy VII podcast, direct everyone to the list of enemies that absolutely will not be in Final Fantasy VII Remake, but absolutely
a shitload of them ended up being in.
But
they're
the
not
list
as
is
funny.
So good.
They are not as funny.
I just love it's motherfucking Christopher.
It's
motherfucking Christopher.
This is the worst.
Who is the woman in the bikini? What the fuck is this?
This is bad. No, it's Imgur has like done something with you can't see the titles of any of these anymore, so you don't see the names of the enemies. This isn't nearly as funny as it used to be.
Pony.
I just love it's motherfucking Christopher. Like that's my absolute favorite. That's my absolute favorite. I wish my name was Christopher just so I could.
I like the
so I could
circle.
say that.
I have a quick question, because like
Okay,
I've only like like sporadically played like 3 Final Fantasy games if you count Kingdom Hearts, but
no, I do not count Kingdom Hearts.
I fucking love.
We're
Kingdom
not
Hearts.
going there.
All right, I'm not gonna talk about Kingdom Hearts, but the original 7, the sort of canon, the consensus, like where did that rank among like as far as like the general rankings of great Final Fantasy games?
Oh no, we can't do this. So
No,
let me
no,
put it this way.
No, or it's
No,
If we're talking about ranking Final Fantasy,
no. Hold up. I'm not
Okay,
saying your
okay.
personal rankings. I'm not saying
Yeah.
your personal rankings. Okay, like I'm just saying like in general, what was like that sort of consensus?
It's like the legendary Final Fantasy. It's the one.
6.
No, if you're
So
talking
I
about
would
broad
say that-
popular perception, not personal
No, it's
favorites.
absolutely 7.
is the
yeah.
one. 7 is like the
7
Final
is
Fantasy
the one.
game.
7 is the one. But
It is
I would
genuinely
argue that
suffering being a
within-
Final Fantasy fan who doesn't really like 7 because it is the game that everyone knows.
because Square Enix has forgotten that there are Final Fantasy games before 7. I agree.
Because the fan
Like-
base loves 7. That is why.
So-
that is why we're getting a remake.
This is going to be a weird analogy, but it was like, RPGs and JRPGs were like they were popular, but they were
Niche.
here. And 7 took the and said, like, everyone's going to fucking play this game. Everyone with the PlayStation 1 is going to play this game. It's like, to me, it's like what Lord of the Rings did for fantasy, where like, elves and wizards and shit like that was like Dungeons and Dragons and EverQuest and stuff like that. And then Lord of the Rings came out and it was like, these won Oscars and they made $1 billion at the box office. That's what Final Fantasy 7 did for RPGs. Where, like,
Yeah,
yes, people play
yeah.
RPGs
It
and like
put
them, but, like,
RPGs on the map. It put video games on the map. It had like the first playable black character in one of the RPGs. Like it was just for its time an incredible game, and it had such an impact on so many people.
So I said in chat too, like I don't hate 7, the original 7, but it's easily my least favorite Final Fantasy out of the entire Super Nintendo through PlayStation 2 eras of them.
Legend of Dragon is better.
Despite that, I really liked Final Fantasy 7 Remake. Final Fantasy 7 Remake does not make me like 7 more, but I actually played it and beat it, and I'm excited to play part 2, part 3, part whatever when they come out 10 years from now.
So my favorite thing about 7 was the fucking music. Every single
Final
when I
Fantasy do got
loaded
some
up
good-ass
the
soundtracks.
game
Oh my
for
god,
the first
soundtrack.
time,
those
I
who fight
bawled.
further,
just the prelude, like pulling up the
I'll tell you what.
game, seeing that fucking sword and hit, like I just lost my shit.
when the Brittany, at the very end, when you fight Genova and you hit the third phase of that fight and that classic Genova theme kicks in real
Yes.
fast, it was
Such a
1
great
o'clock in the
moment.
morning. It was 1 o'clock in the morning in my house. And I had a pair of headphones on and I stood up and I shouted at the top of my fucking lungs and threw my controller because I was so goddamn excited.
Yeah.
Like, I was so fucking hyped up. Oh,
It's
I wanna
funny
play it
because
now.
like when you talk to people about Final Fantasy, like people are fucking all over the place. But with a few exceptions, almost every Final Fantasy game, it seems like everyone agrees the music usually delivers.
Yeah,
Slaps.
it slaps real
This
hard.
is
I think-
specifically slaps though. Like
And I think to maybe like circle back around, I think the reason that I did not like the original Final Fantasy as much as I should have is kind of the same reason why I don't like Star Wars as I should have. I had it hyped up for me like so much my entire life. It was this video game that you haven't played Final Fantasy VII. What's wrong with you? My entire
Right.
life. So when I finally played it, as an adult, well, almost I was in college, so an adult, past the point where those graphics and the look of that game well outdated by that time. It was so underwhelming to me. So Final Fantasy Remake being presented to me as I'm looking at the trailers and stuff thinking, God, they're just remaking Final Fantasy VII. Who cares? And then finding out that it was actually this really interesting subversion suddenly made me 10 times more interested in it because it was not what it had been hyped up to me to be in a good way, and I was really into that.
and also it's fucking amazing because it's about these like the poor class rising up against like big corporate. Like it's
Yeah.
such a
Yeah.
good fucking message in this day
Save
and
the
age.
planet.
I
Fuck the
remember-
corporations.
Yeah.
I remember one of the things I was worried about with this remake is that it would tone down some of the political stuff that was in Final Fantasy VII.
I think it's louder.
And if anything, they cranked it up. Like,
Yeah.
like there's that whole speech that Barrett gives about like Tifa's like concerned about just the regular people that have to work at Shinra, and like Barrett gives like a speech about culpability and personal responsibility and stuff that I thought was like really on point and stuff. But like this game was super cool for me because Well, Final Fantasy VII was the first game I ever completely finished on my own. Usually I'd be like trading off controllers with a friend or something. This was the first game that I finished beginning to end on my own. And so it holds a very special place in my heart because of it. And so but when I was a kid, when I played it, I didn't realize there was like, because all the marketing was, Cloud, sword on his back, looking up at the Shinra Tower, like, and it was all built around Midgard, like, and everything. So, like, it was actually surprising when you go outside of Midgard in the original. And I remember people were like, oh, well, it's kind of ridiculous they're turning just a few hours of being into Midgard into this full game. And, like, for me, that was kind of the exciting thing about this remake, because it finally let me explore and be in this space in a much more detailed way than I've always wanted to ever since I was a little kid. Like, that was always a space I wanted to be in. Like, Midgard was something that caught my imagination as a kid, and the original Final Fantasy VII, you don't really spend much time there. And so, like, seeing it fleshed out, seeing more about the lives of the people that live there, seeing them interacting in their neighborhoods, seeing, things they do for fun, what's difficult about their lives, what their jobs are, and just, walking through that space was a huge deal for me. So, like, it fulfilled something that the original didn't for me. And by finally letting me, like, actually be in Midgard, and I loved it.
So we're past our time. Does anybody else? Oh, well, before I do that, does anybody else have anything they want to say about Final Fantasy VII Remake?
I have one last thing that I think
Please,
is very important. In the original Final Fantasy VII, it was always Tifa versus Aerith over Cloud, and I think they did a really, really, really good job of representing female friendship and just giving them time together that wasn't talking about Cloud. Like, they were their own characters, they formed their own relationship, and they got along. Surprise, surprise. Like,
they're this close to ditching Cloud and going off on their own adventure. Like,
right.
Yeah, like, fuck this.
Pretty much. And they have multiple scenes together. Like, they have the Honeybee Inn, Don Carino's scene, and then they have the scene in the sewers together. And it's so it's just it's nice to see characters that I loved separately for different reasons just become better characters, so it just makes me feel good about the things that I liked, and now I can continue to like them for different and in some ways better reasons. So
I see nobody talked about the massage house.
We don't need to talk about
that. So anyway, before we get off here, we've got a few items to tick off here real quick. Don't forget, next weekend we have our 12-hour charity stream.
It's much more than 12 hours at this point.
Well, it's going to be more than 12 hours.
We've added on to the beginning and the end. I think we're at 16 or maybe 18 hours. I'd have to check, but we have a big marathon.
We got a big marathon coming. We've got a lot of cool people who are going to stream with us. Reb is going to be there. Reb has her own 2-hour block. The SDGC. What time is Reb's block, Derek? Do you know offhand?
I don't have the fucking spreadsheet in front of me.
It's 10 a.m. I don't know what time zone that's in.
Okay.
Eastern. All the times are Eastern.
It's Eastern. All times are Eastern. We're going to be the SDGC block will be from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be streaming Among Us with a bunch of community friends, a bunch of industry friends, and also a member of the dev team from Among Us, Forrest, is going to play with us, and also Victoria Tran, who is their community coordinator. And so that's going to be a really good time. So come out and please support us and help raise some money for a good cause.
I just want to plug that if you're coming by at 10 a.m. Eastern, you're gonna watch me play Sonic Adventure 2.
Hell yes.
That's what I'm doing.
I'm gonna be there all day.
That's what I'm doing.
So.
Am I going to spend 1 hour and 50 minutes of that 2-hour block in the Chow Garden? Try to stop me.
That was my next question. I was like, will the Chow Garden make an appearance?
The Chow Garden will make multiple appearances.
It's about time you play a good Animal Crossing game.
John, do we lose you?
This weekend, Finn and I are going to be recording our first episode of our what's that?
No, sorry, I just thought we lost you for a moment.
This weekend, Finn and I are going to be recording our first. Oh no, I'm here. This weekend, Finn and I will be recording our first episode of Dual Daddies, which is going to be our new SDGC podcast about two dads who are raising kids who are gamers. Of course, my son is 12, and Finn has a beautiful young daughter coming into the world soon. And so we are going to share perspectives, and we are also going to bring on moms and dads who are gamers, who have children who are gamers, and talk to them about their experiences as well. So, and this will be not just a limited time thing, but Finn and I are going to just keep on doing this podcast. So we're extremely excited about that. And one last message to everybody in chat and here on the podcast. You know, we're starting a new year, and I know that 2020 was tough. And right now, things in 2021 are tough as well. And we are entering into what could potentially be a week of unrest here in the United States. There's a lot of uncertainty right now. There's a lot of fear. But I wanted to let everybody know that I think we're going to be okay as long as we stay true to each other, and we look out for each other, and we stand up for each other. You know, I firmly believe right now, or I have to believe, that there's more good in the world than bad. And the family that I've gathered here on SDGC and the love that we have in the chat every week kind of reinforces that for me. So it's very important over the next week. Take care of each other, look out for each other, check up on each other, be careful, you know, stay safe, do whatever you have to do. My DMs are open if anybody wants to talk, or if anybody just needs to vent or ask questions about what's happening. I have experience in that kind of stuff. So I'm more than willing to take some time out to talk to you, but more than that, just be good to each other and take care of each other. Let's start 2021 off new. Let's all turn over a new leaf and be good to each other, because as we say in this podcast, kindness costs nothing. It really doesn't. So let's all make a pledge to each other to do that. I am so thankful for the community that we've built. I'm so thankful for my friends here and my family on the podcast. I wouldn't have made it through 2020 without any of you. And I'm going to continue to count on you, all of you, to get me through 2021, and you can count on me to help you get through as well. So with that, if nobody has anything else, go ahead.
Can I just add a little thing on that? I learned the hard way last week that also ignoring your own mental health can end very poorly. I got a wake-up call that I really wasn't taking enough time to take care of myself as well. So while you're checking on other people, remember to take care of yourself and unplug if you need to. Do something you enjoy if you need to. Take a walk, take a nap. Everybody that you're listening to on this show was there for me when I was not functioning last week. And they mean the world to me. And I just want everybody listening to remember that you can look out for other people, but you gotta also be careful and watch out for them, because it'll catch up to you eventually. So I want everybody to stay safe, take care of yourself, and take care of each other.
Extremely well said, Justin. And with that, we will be back next Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, just as we are. Remember, kindness costs nothing. Final Fantasy VI is amazing. Have a good night.
Final Fantasy VI is not that great.
Final Fantasy VI is the best one. Sorry.